Hello friends, this is Sharmistha from the AIRWO, the All India Revolutionary Women's Organization, participating in the campaign If We Do Not Rise. As you know, today marks the third martyrdom anniversary of Gauri Lankesh, a fearless journalist who spent years of her life struggling against patriarchy, against caste domination, against every kind of inequality in society, and who was an intrepid voice against all that is wrong and all that is unfair and all that is unjust, an intrepid voice for the oppressed, an intrepid voice for those discriminated against, for those pushed out of the margins of life through violence and discrimination. On this day in 2017, she was shot dead in front of her house by unidentified assailants. It is clear now that these assailants were working at the bidding of the fascist forces that unfortunately rule the country today, the fascist forces which we are trying to fight, which we are trying to erase out of society. 3 years on, the case against her murder can be said to be lukewarm at the best. Charges have not yet been framed, and it seems that the arrest, the punishment of her killers is of no priority. Rather, it is the priority of the fascist forces that rule our country to shield the assailants, to ensure that they go scot-free. Gauri Lankesh symbolized an idea, the idea of dissent. As we know that a democracy thrives when there is dissent. Without dissent, democracy is dead. And for women, democracy is the very core of a for women, dissent is the very core, the primary necessity of a dignified existence. Without dissent, without dissenting against patriarchy, without dissenting against the patriarchy which starts before a woman is born, when she is in the womb, and it's being debated whether she will be given the right to live. Without dissent, a woman cannot survive for a second in this patriarchal system, in this patriarchal society. Dissent is the core of her existence. Dissent against patriarchy, dissent against the forces that strive to keep her at home, dissent against the forces that strive to proscribe her behavior, set norms for her, dissent against the behavior that tries to frame rules for her, that tries to tell her what to do and what not to do, that tries to tell her how to live her life. Without dissent, women cannot survive. It is dissent that has led us to achieve the little we have achieved today. The little freedom we have achieved today has been brought about by dissent. The dissent of Savitribai Phule, who refused to bow down to caste oppression and spearheaded an education campaign for the caste deprived, for the caste underprivileged. Dissent by many other great fighters of the era of independence struggle, of Kamala Dutt, be it Kamala Dutt, Madam Bhikaji Kama, and Pritilata Vadedar, and so many others. It was their dissent, their forceful assertion that women are the backbone of any struggle that has given us the little rights which we have achieved today. The thrust today, the thrust of the ruling clique, the thrust of the fascist forces today is the crushing of this dissent. We are seeing what has happened to people who strive to make this world, make this society a better place, a more equal place, a more equitable place for the oppressed, for the deprived, for the marginalized. We know that so many intellectuals, including progressive fighters like Sudha Bhardwaj and Shoma Sen, are behind bars today. Why? Because they had dared to dissent. We know how Varvara Rao is being denied bail persistently. We have seen how Rona Wilson and the others have been put behind bars for the last 2 years. Why? Because they had striven to make the society a more equitable place. And today, on the day of Gauri Lankesh's martyrdom, a news that has spread all over Kolkata is yet another attempt by the fascists to crush dissent. The NIA has called in for questioning young professor Partho Sarathy Rai, Dr. Partho Sarathy Rai of Kolkata, who is a constant presence in all mass struggles, who is a constant presence in democratic struggles, in struggles for prisoners' rights. Dr. Partho Sarathy Rai, who has also done sterling work during this period of the pandemic, has been summoned for questioning by the NIA. He has been summoned to Bombay. So we see how the net is closing. We can see how the net is closing in on all of us who are raising our voices. Just before the pandemic broke out, India saw perhaps one of the most glorious struggles since independence, the struggle against NRC, CAA, NPR. And as we know, across the country, it was thousands of women, millions of women who participated in this struggle. Women who set up camps and stayed in Shaheen Bagh and in other Shaheen Baghs across the country for days on end, weeks on end, demanding no NPR, no NRC, no CAA. We have seen women at the forefront of this struggle to divide the country on communal lines. We have seen women's assertion in a way which is quite unmatched. We have seen women's assertion come forward in a way quite unprecedented in the recent past. And what do we see immediately after? Immediately after, as the pandemic begins and people are forced to stay at home, the government starts arresting the anti-CAA protesters. While those who set fire to Delhi, those who caused the riot in Delhi that led to so many people losing their lives and property, so many people losing their livelihood, while those who caused those riots have not been touched, they have been allowed to go scot-free, they are being celebrated as heroes by this government. But those who dared to protest against the use of religion as a tool to communalize and divide society, those who tried to protest the stealthy inclusion of religion in our secular constitution, they have found themselves increasingly behind bars. be it Devangana, Kalita, Natasha, Gulfisha. Before them there was Shafura, who had to be released because of the enormous protests that took place all over the country. So many anti-NRC, anti-CAA protesters were thrown into prison. So many of them have cases framed against them. Why? Simply because they dared to protest, simply because they said that we shall not let go of secularism. We shall not let go of the secularism that is enshrined in our constitution. Indeed, we shall take that secularism ahead further. Indeed, we shall take that secularism ahead further, where there will be a complete division, a complete divorce between state and religion. So these people committed to taking secularism up further found themselves in prison, while those who are determined to erase the word secularism, erase the spirit of secularism from the constitution, from the fabric of Indian society, these criminals are ruling the roost. These criminals are the ones who are at the helm of affairs. And what a sorry mess has that proved to be. What a sorry mess that has landed us in. Today, every day, according to government records, more than 1,000 people are dying of COVID. The number of unrecorded deaths will not be much lesser than that. Add to it the number of people who are dying because they cannot access treatment because of the arbitrary restrictions imposed. And you can see that every day thousands of people are dying who are not supposed to die, who are supposed to lead long, healthy lives. Their lives are being cut short. And why? Because of the criminal act of the government, because of the criminal callousness of the government in tackling the COVID pandemic. What was needed? What should the government have done? The government should have taken care of all its citizens. The government should have taxed the super rich and ensured that people did not have to venture out of their houses. The government need not have given the sops to the corporates, which it did. The government need not have contrived to make Ambani and Advani richer. The government need not have contrived to make the rich even so rich that they cannot fit their wealth in any single bank. The government need not have contrived to do that. What the government should have done was to ensure that no one had to step out of their houses. Give every family of 4, every unit of 4, a monthly subsistence of 10,000 rupees. Give them free rations so that they are not compelled to step out of their houses, putting their lives in peril. Control the pandemic, bring things back to normal, and then people can start with their normal lives once again. But this is not what the government did. The government locked up people in their homes and denied them food and denied them cash, denied them every kind of benefit which was due to them. The citizens who have been paying taxes ever since they are born. For every single thing we buy, we pay a tax. For tax-paying citizens, the government, it seemed, had no money to spend. It announced a package of rupees 20 lakh crores, and we know where the 20 lakh crores went. It went directly into the coffers of the Advanis and the Ambanis. There is now a scam over the PM Cares Fund. And yet, the government had no money to spend on its citizens. Not a single country that has tackled COVID properly, that has succeeded in tackling COVID, has mistreated its citizens, has left its citizens to their own fate in the way the Indian government has done. We can take examples of New Zealand, we can take examples of Australia, we can take the example even of America, where another fascist is holding power. Even there, cash transfer was made. Cash was given to the citizens to tide them over, to those who needed it, to tide them over for the time when they could not venture out of their homes. But what did our government do? Our government locked us up and ensured we were left locked in, without food, without money, without medicine, without the basic needs of life. And where is the dissent against this? Where is the protest against this? You try and raise you try and protest, you try and raise your voice against this, and what will happen? You will inevitably land up in prison. You will inevitably be arrested on concocted charges, on trumped up charges like Sudha Bhardwaj. It is to be believed that Sudha Bhardwaj was involved in a plot to assassinate the Prime Minister. It is to be believed that Sudha Bhardwaj, a stalwart lawyer, a stalwart educationist, a social worker, a fighter for the rights of the Adivasis, that Sudha Bhardwaj was engaged in such a childish plot. So, evidently it was not the case, but the government had reason to want her in prison. Just as the government had reason to want Varvara Rao in prison, just as the government had reason to want Shoma Sen in prison, so the government had reason to want each of these protesters in prison. And so it did. It cooked up, trumped up charges and sent them to prison. And now it's playing its part by consistently denying them bail. So this is the reality of India today. And what has this pandemic meant for Indian women? For Indian women, it has meant an inflated joblessness. We know, as I said when I started, that in India, dissent is the core of a woman's existence. If you cannot dissent, if you do not dissent, you cannot live. A woman cannot live, a woman cannot survive if she does not dissent. In India, the employment rate for women, the female labor participation rate, that is abysmally low. It is I think, worse even than Bangladesh. It is nearer some sub-Saharan countries. It's some 23% or something like that. It was in the period of 2018-2019. And with this abysmally low female labor participation rate, what the pandemic has done to Indian women is it has sent even more women, thousands of women, millions of women out of jobs. It has driven them out of jobs. We wanted to develop the Constitution. We want to develop the Constitution so that it incorporates the right to employment as a fundamental right, the right to employment for both men and women as a fundamental right. That is the way we want to develop our Constitution. And what do these fascists want? These fascists want to take away from the Constitution whatever it has given us, whatever right it has given us, whatever dignity it has given us, whatever equality it has given us. Equal opportunity, that is a fundamental right. But this equal opportunity today is sought to be snatched away from us. So COVID has landed Indian women in an abyss of joblessness. It has landed women in an abyss of violence. There have been numerous reports how violence against women has spiraled during the pandemic, especially during the lockout period. And what do we see on top of that? How do we see the state reacting to that? There are countless examples. I myself have intervened in a number of cases where the police refuse. In ordinary circumstances, the police refuse to listen to women. The police refuse to take down complaints of domestic violence. Police refuse to take down complaints of molestation or rape. And in the pandemic situation, in the lockdown situation, the police refuse to listen to women even more. I myself have intervened in a number of cases where we really had to fight to get the police to register an FIR in case of domestic violence, to register an FIR in case of death by domestic violence. We had to put up a fight to get the police to just register the FIR. Violence against women has spiraled in this lockdown period. And what is the response of the government? What is the response of the Indian state? We have seen two sterling judgments, two sterling observations of the courts coming out in this period, one by the Karnataka High Court and the other by the Guwahati High Court. We all know of these two sterling instances. In the instance of the Karnataka High Court, a woman who was raped by a colleague, possibly her boss at her workplace, and who was fighting the case in court. She was told The judge expressed his surprise. Why had the woman gone to visit the man at such an advanced hour of the night? The judge expressed doubts regarding her character. The judge expressed doubts regarding her intentions. It was as if she was soliciting rape. And the judge observed that she did not behave as a raped woman ought to behave. There are apparently rules of how a raped woman should behave, and apparently she did not follow those set rules. It was one of the darkest days of the judiciary. The Guwahati High Court, in another instance, it was in this lockdown period, a woman who was fighting against the divorce filed by her husband. Why had the husband filed for divorce? Because the woman had complained of domestic violence. The lower court had granted divorce, the family court had granted divorce, but then the family court had refused to grant divorce. And then the husband had approached the High Court. The husband had approached the Guwahati High Court. And what did the Guwahati High Court say? What did the learned High Court say? The learned High Court said that since the woman in question does not display wifely behavior. What is that wifely behavior? She does not put on vermilion. She does not put on conch bangles. You know what we call shakha and shidur in Bengali. And because she does not put on these adornments, it can be said that she is not committed to her marriage. So a woman has to put on adornments. The court says, the court is prescribing that a woman has to adorn herself with shakha and shidur, with vermilion and conch bangles, to prove her commitment to the marriage. Why? Because that apparently is the Hindu tradition. And what is the Hindu tradition for man? How does a man prove that he is committed to the marriage? By beating up his wife? By raping her? By having sex with her against her wishes? By making her do his bidding? By curbing her freedom in every conceivable way? That is how a husband proves commitment to the marriage. He proves his commitment to the marriage by asserting that he owns his wife. He is the owner, he is the master of the wife. And the wife proves her commitment by sporting vermilion on her forehead, by sporting conch bangles on her wrists. So thus observed the Honorable Guwahati High Court. In another case in Bihar, we saw how two women's activists, one woman and one trans person, how they were arrested. I think their names were Tanmay and Seema, yeah. So they were arrested. Tanmay and Seema were arrested and kept in prison for close to a month. Their bail appeals were repeatedly rejected. Why? What was their fault? Because they had dared to stand up for a rape survivor, a young rape survivor who found it difficult to face the judge who was obviously berating her, who was obviously making her relive that horrendous experience, who had panicked, who could not speak, who lost courage, who called for her friends, her sathis, to be by her side. And when Tanmay and Seema went to give support to this woman, they were arrested for disrupting the court proceedings. Thus has the Indian state behaved with women in this period. And these are just 3 examples which made it to the newspapers. These are just 3 examples which made it to the headlines. How many more such examples there are, one cannot think. The point now is that women have caught up with the idea of resistance. You know, as Maya Angelou said, her famous lines, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I'll rise." And so have women pledged to rise. And that is why we get reports from every corner of the country how women are protesting, how women are not taking things lying down, how women are coming out on the streets, how women are defying patriarchal norms, how women are defying the rules which have been set for them by a patriarchal system, how women are demanding their rights. We have seen women workers go on strike. We have seen the protests of our frontline COVID warriors, the ASHA workers. We have seen how women are demanding their rights and how women are no longer scared to speak out. This is a turning point. We are living at a turning point of history. We are living at a turning point of history when the crushing of dissent is the principle of the government, and the raising of dissent, resistance, mass resistance, individual resistance, public resistance. Resistance is the principle of the people. This began when the government dared to tread on the secular fabric, when the government dared to try and rip apart the secular fabric of the constitution by introducing NRC, NPR, CAA. And now when we have seen the shameless incident when the Prime Minister, who is not supposed to take part in any religious activity, as the head of a secular state, he may have his personal religious belief, he may offer his pujas at home, but as the head of the state, as the Prime Minister, he has no business engaging publicly in any religious activity. And that is exactly what our Prime Minister did on the 5th of August. On the 5th of August, a shameful day for Indian democracy, when the Bhumi Pujan was held in Ayodhya, our Prime Minister went there and did the honors. However, it was not his job to do so. It is his job to control this pandemic. It is his job to control the spiraling down of the colliding of the economy. It is the collapsing of the economy. It is his job to control the collapsing of the economy. It is his job to control the pandemic. But this is exactly what he is not doing. Pandemic is an act of God. Thus speaks our minister, thus speaks our finance minister. And the Prime Minister is busy telling us, busy providing us solace that look, so few people are dying. It's only a matter of 1,000 or so every day. 1,000 lives, 1,000 expendable lives. 1,000 expendable lives, 1,000 lives of 1,000 citizens. It does not matter to the Prime Minister. It does not matter to the Prime Minister when 1,000 piles upon 1,000 piles upon 1,000 and speeds towards a lakh. It does not matter to our Prime Minister. It does not bother our Prime Minister that he has blood on his hands. What do we expect of him? He has a living genocide on his hands. He has on his hands the blood of Gujarat. He has on his hands the blood of the Gujarat genocide. So what do we expect of that Prime Minister? So naturally now he has these COVID deaths in his hand. He has the joblessness of people in his hands. He has the poverty of people in his hands. He has the hunger of people in his hands. And yet he prefers to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to all these real problems, which are plaguing the lives and livelihoods of people today, are plaguing the lives and livelihoods of Indian citizens today. And he's busy. What is he busy doing? He's busy selling off our assets. He's busy selling off all that is national. He's busy selling off our banks, our railways, our everything. All that is national, all that we had held pride in. The Prime Minister is busy selling off each and every one of them. So in this situation, this campaign, Still We Rise. If we do not rise, this campaign, If We Do Not Rise, is a campaign of a few hundred women's organizations, individual women across the country, women who have pledged that if we do not rise, then it is the end. If we do not rise, it is the end of a democracy as we knew it. A democracy that was carved, a democracy that was limited, a democracy that had its flaws. But in spite of that, a democracy which was still barely livable. And we are now faced with what? With what is this democracy which was still barely livable being replaced It is being replaced by fascism. A fascism, a so-called Hindu Rashtra. Hindu people are being made fools of. Religion is just a game in the hands of these fascist politicians. Hindus are being made fools of. The Hindu Rashtra, which the Amit Shahs and the other ideologues of the fascist Sangh Parivar preach today, has very little to do with the common Hindu man or common Hindu woman. It has got absolutely nothing to do with the Hindu woman. What is the Hindu state they are talking about? Actually, the Hindu state they are talking about is a state of the Hindu corporate fascists. It is a state of upper caste, upper class caste Hindu men. It is a state where women have no place. Women have no place in the polity. Women have no place in the general scheme of things, where women will be sent back to their homes. That Hindu Rashtra which is being touted as something great, something much sought after by the Hindu masses, will mean what? Will mean what for the Hindu masses? It will mean a more entrenched caste division. We know that the caste system is quite synonymous with the Hindu religion. So a Hindu Rashtra will mean an entrenched caste system. It will mean more oppression on the majority of the caste oppressed. It will mean more oppression on the underprivileged castes, the castes which have been compelled to remain backward by Brahminical forces over the centuries. These people who face discrimination today will face extinction, will face decimation under Hindu Rashtra. These people who face discrimination, Brahminical discrimination today, Brahminical oppression today, will face decimation under a Hindu Rashtra. And what about upper caste? Are all upper castes safe? Absolutely not. You have to be a corporate. You have to be in the corporate lobby. You have to be a part of the corporate lobby to be really safe, to really have a ground beneath your feet. You have to be part of that corporate lobby to be really safe in the Hindu Rashtra which the Sangh Parivar is so bent on ushering in. And that is why it is the task not only of all non-Hindus, all atheists, all people of other religions, but also the task of working class Hindus, of Hindus who are caste oppressed, Hindus who belong to the backward within quotes, backward castes. It is the task of all these people to unite, to do everything in the power, everything in their power to stop the advent of this Hindu Rashtra, because this Hindu Rashtra will be nothing but a country for the elite, of the elite, and by the elite. So friends, on this third martyrdom anniversary of Gauri Lankesh, let us pledge like Maya Angelou, still I'll rise, still we'll rise. We'll rise against all that strives to drag us backwards. We'll rise against all that strives to snatch from us the rights for which our ancestors have fought, for which our ancestors have laid down their lives. We will strive again, we will resist every attempt to snatch from us the rights, the democracy, the freedoms which we enjoy because of the enormous sacrifices of our ancestors, of our sisters who laid down their lives, of the lives of Pritilata Vadedar. She laid down her life. Why? Because she wanted to see an India where women are pushed back into their homes. Why did Ila Mitro brave that torture? Why? Because she wanted to see women being pushed into their homes. Monikuntala Sen, when she was fighting for the Hindu civil court in parliament, what was she fighting for? What was she thinking about? That 50 years on, Indian women will be pushed back into their homes. Indian women will be driven out of their jobs, where rape will become an everyday reality, violence against women will become an everyday reality, and a Hindu Rashtra will come into being. Is this what they were thinking of? Is this what they laid down their lives for? Is this what Gauri Lankesh had fought against? Is this what Gauri Lankesh laid down her life for? Certainly not. And so, as part of this campaign, if we do not rise, I appeal to all my sisters. I appeal to all my sisters in this country who are part of this campaign that we really must take it forward. From if we do not rise, we must proceed to we will rise, we are rising. We will proceed to we are rising. A billion women rising. When a billion women rise, where will the fascists go? When a billion women rise, what will the fascists do? What will the fascists do but just to lay down their arms and go quietly back into their nests? So that is our aim. A billion women should rise. A billion women should shout. A billion women should come out on the streets. A billion women should shout. A billion women should pledge never, never to give in. My solidarity, the solidarity of ARW with all our sisters who are in prison. Sudha Bhardwaj, Shoma Sen, Devangana, Natasha, Kalpana Maiti in West Bengal, and many others. Many others. Our solidarity with our brothers who are in jail too. Our solidarity with these prisoners of conscience. Our solidarity with these political prisoners. Let us demand the freedom of all political prisoners. Let us not just demand, but let us take the steps, take the measures to seize this demand, to seize the right of the political prisoner to speak his mind, the right of the political prisoner to practice her politics. Let us demand an elimination of violence against women. Let us demand a zero tolerance policy against any kind of violence, any form of violence against women, be it physical, be it mental, be it economic, any form of violence against women. Let us demand elimination of violence against women. And let us demand that for women, education, health and employment should be a fundamental right. Let us demand that this division of women into homemakers and employed women, this division which was created and perpetuated by patriarchy, let us demand an end to this division. Every woman has the right, it is the inalienable right of every woman to participate in the social production process of society. And let us demand that every woman be given this right by law. So I'll end with Maya Angelou's epochal words. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's monstrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Zindabad to all Sathis, Zindabad to all women and all men who are fighting for an equitable society. Thank you.